You ever have that feeling in your gut, like something's happening right in front of your eyes, but you just can't put your finger on it? Yeah, that's been me for the last few months, but I kept brushing it off. Amanda, my wife, is 6 months pregnant with our first child, and I thought the distance between us was normal. Maybe it's the hormones. Maybe she's just exhausted from carrying our kid. I was stupid. Last Friday was the night. Everything cracked open, and looking back, I still can't figure out how I didn't see it coming. I was supposed to be at a late work meeting that evening or so. Amanda thought I'd actually finished earlier than expected, which made me excited to get home and maybe have one of those rare moments where we could relax and watch something stupid on TV. The house was dark when I got there, and it seemed empty. So I figured she was upstairs napping or something, until I noticed her car wasn't in the driveway. I thought maybe she'd gone to the store. I texted her, but no response. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour, still no reply, and her phone was going straight to voicemail. I'm not a paranoid guy, but something about that silence was digging under my skin. And that's when I did something I'd never done. Before I opened her laptop, I felt guilty just looking at it, like I was crossing some invisible line of trust. But at that moment, I didn't care. The first thing that popped up was a group chat. Her friends were talking about some party. They'd all gone to something I had zero clue about. The messages were full of details, laughing about the wild night. When Amanda jumped into the pool, one of her friends wrote, "I thought I'd die of laughter. Pregnant and still the life of the party." Wait, a party? My pregnant wife went to a party without telling me. I was dumbfounded. Not once did she mention it, and as far as I knew, she had spent the entire evening at home resting. But apparently, she'd been out drinking, jumping into pools, and God knows what else I kept reading. And that's when things got worse. Her friend Megan wrote, "I still can't believe what happened with him." What was she thinking him? Who the hell was him? I could feel the blood rushing to my ears as I scrolled through the messages, piecing together fragments of what had happened. A name popped up. Jason, some guy I didn't know, who apparently got a little too close to Amanda that night. The group chat was full of teasing comments and vague inside jokes that made my stomach twist into knots. I don't know what I expected to find, but definitely not this pregnant partying another guy. I was pacing the living room at this point, my thoughts racing faster than I could keep up with. Where was she? What the hell was she doing, and why hadn't she said a word to me? An hour turned into 2 by the time I heard the front door creak open. It was almost midnight. Amanda walked in carrying her heels in one hand and her phone in the other, wearing this smug little smile like she had just had the time of her life. The sight of her hit me like a train. Everything I had read, everything I didn't know, and everything I was about to find out. But that confrontation, that was only the start. When Amanda walked through the door that night, her mood was way too carefree for someone who had just come back from God knows, where she didn't even notice me at first. Sitting there in the dark, watching her like a hawk, she kicked off her shoes stretched and let out a long sigh, like she had just come back from a spa day or something. I stood up trying to keep my voice calm. "Where were you?" She froze that smile I saw on her face. It vanished in an instant, replaced by something colder, more calculating. Her eyes darted toward the stairs, like she was already planning her escape. "I went out with the girls." She said, her voice light, as if the answer was obvious. "Didn't you get my text?" That was her first mistake. There was no text. I knew it, and she knew it. I took a step closer, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to hold it together. "You didn't text me." In fact, I've been trying to reach you all night. Your phone went straight to voicemail." She stared at me for a second, her face blank. Then she laughed like a light laugh, the kind someone gives when they're trying to brush something off. "Oh yeah, my battery died." She shrugged. Holding up her phone like that somehow made everything fine. I didn't even realize it until I was already out. I nodded slowly, like I was accepting her excuse. But inside I was boiling. I couldn't stop thinking about the messages I saw. I knew she was lying, but I needed her to keep talking, to keep digging. "Her own grave must have been a good time," I said, trying to sound casual. "Where'd you go?" Her eyes flicked away for a second too long, and that was when I saw it. The hesitation, the calculating pause before she answered. "Oh, we just went to Megan's place. A few of us had dinner and hung out for a bit." She forced a smile, walking toward the kitchen like the conversation was over. But it wasn't, not even close. "Megan's, huh?" I leaned against the wall, my arms crossed, watching her every move. Funny, because I heard something else. Something about a party. She stopped in her tracks. I could practically see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much she could get away with. "Oh well, yeah. It was more of a small get-together. You know how Megan is? She invites a few people over. Things get a little loud, no big deal." I couldn't believe the coming out of her mouth. I felt the anger rising in my chest. But I still needed more. I wanted to see how far she'd go with this charade. "So this guy, Jason," the name tasted like poison in my mouth. Did he have fun at this small get-together too? Her reaction was instant. She spun around, eyes wide with shock, then quickly masked it with a fake laugh. "Laugh, Jason. What are you talking about?" "There was no Jason. You're being ridiculous, Adam. Am I?" I snapped my patience. Finally, breaking couldn't hold back anymore, because, according to your group chat, you were practically swimming with the guy. You didn't just go out with the girls, Amanda. You lied. You've been lying. The color drained from her face, and her mask slipped for a second. Then, just as fast, she put it back on. This time angrier, more defensive. "Oh, so, you've been snooping through my phone now." She snapped, her voice, dripping with venom. "What you don't trust me is that you're going to sit there and act like I'm the bad guy because I went to a party." The way she turned it around on me, like I was the one who had crossed a line, was enough to make my blood boil. But that wasn't even the worst part. "You were drunk," I said, taking a step closer, "drunk and pregnant." "What the hell were you thinking?" she scoffed, rolling her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "Oh, please. I had one drink. Don't act like I was partying all night." I stared at her, barely recognizing the woman standing in front of me. The lies were unraveling, but she still clung to them like they were her lifeline. She didn't even care about what she'd done, about how reckless and selfish she'd been. But I wasn't done. "Yet we're getting a DNA test tomorrow," I said, my voice cold. "Final. I want to know if the child you're carrying is mine or Jason's." Her eyes flared with shock. Then, fury. "Are you serious right now? How dare you accuse me of that? You've completely lost it. Adam, this is insane. Insane." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No. What's insane is how far you're willing to go to keep lying. But I'm done playing this game. We're going for that test." First thing in the morning, Amanda stood there, her face hard. Her jaw clenched, the tension between us, thick enough to cut with a knife. I didn't know what she'd do next, but one thing was clear. The truth was finally starting to come out. Whether she liked it or not, Amanda didn't move. She stood frozen, staring at me like I had just dropped the most unbelievable accusation ever. But the worst part there wasn't fear in her eyes, just pure rage, not regret, not guilt. Rage, like I had no right to call her out, like I was the one betraying her. You think I'm cheating on you? She spat, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I'm carrying your child, Adam, your child. And this is how you repay me, by throwing around wild accusations because I went to a party. I wasn't having it. Not anymore. I crossed the room in 2 long strides, barely containing the fury bubbling inside me. It's not just the party, Amanda. It's everything. The lying, the sneaking around, the sudden nights out the phone, always on silent. Your secret little world that I'm apparently not allowed to be a part of. You never told me about this guy, Jason. Why, she threw her hands up, exasperated, pacing the room like she couldn't believe what was happening. There is no Jason. She yelled, her voice cracking at the edges. But the way she said it, it was too rehearsed, too quick. God, Adam, he's just some guy who was there. I barely even spoke to him. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I took a deep breath, trying not to let her gaslight me into doubting what I already knew. Right. That's why your friends were laughing about it in the group chat, right, about you and him getting a little too close. So what was it? Just harmless fun, because that's not how it looked. From where I'm standing. Amanda's face twisted in frustration, her eyes narrowing like she was weighing her next move. She opened her mouth to fire back, but I cut her off before she could spew more excuses. You know what? What? I don't care what you say right now. I said, my voice low, steady. You've lied to me enough. Tomorrow we're getting the DNA test, and that's final. And if I find out you've been lying about more than just Jason, I'm done. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amanda's face flushed with a mix of anger and shock, but I could see it just for a moment. Her composure slipped there. It was the flicker of something she didn't want me to see, guilt, panic. I wasn't sure. But it was enough to tell me I wasn't crazy for doubting her. And then, in the blink of an eye, she flipped the switch. She broke into tears, full-on, sobbing hands to her face, the whole act. You think I'd do that to you? She choked out between heaving breaths. You think I'd cheat on you while I'm carrying your baby? What kind of person do you think I am? I'm your wife, Adam. I can't believe this. You don't trust me at all. I just stood there watching her crumble. But something inside me had shifted. I had seen this show before, the waterworks. The deflection, turning the blame on me. This wasn't new. I've been falling for it for months, maybe even years. But this time it wasn't working. I felt nothing but cold resolve when her sobs died down. She sat on the couch, looking up at me with red, tear-streaked eyes, searching my face for any sign of weakness. She was playing her last card, hoping I'd break. But I didn't. We'll see, Amanda. I said, my voice like stone. We'll see. After the test, she blinked like she hadn't expected me to hold my ground for a second. I thought she was going to explode again, but instead she straightened up and wiped her face with the back of her hand. The tears were gone just as quickly as they'd come. Fine, she said, her voice cold, venomous. If that's what it takes to prove to you that you're being paranoid, then fine, I'll take the damn test. She stood up and stormed past me, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I didn't follow her. Instead, I just sat down staring at the floor, my head spinning with everything that had just gone down. The Amanda. I knew the woman I married. She was slipping away, or maybe she was never really there. To begin with, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. My mind kept going back to that Jason guy. The way her friends talked about it, like it was some joke, something to laugh off. But there was nothing funny about what was happening here. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, and no matter how much I wanted to believe her, the pieces weren't adding up. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her walking through that door, laughing, carefree, like nothing was wrong. The lies, the secrets, the fake tears, and now the looming DNA test that could blow everything apart. Morning came, and Amanda was already up. When I dragged myself out of bed, she didn't say a word to me as she got dressed. But I didn't need her to. We both knew what was coming next. This was the moment everything would change. The ride to the clinic was dead, silent. No music, no small talk, just tension thick enough to suffocate us both. But in that silence, I knew one thing for sure. By the end of the day, I'd know the truth. One way or another, the clinic felt like a tomb. Cold, sterile, and suffocating. We sat side by side in the waiting room, but the space between us felt like miles. Amanda scrolled through her phone, avoiding my eyes, her face a perfect mask of indifference. I had no idea what was going on in her head, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted answers. When the nurse called our names, Amanda stood up without a word, marching toward the back like this. Whole thing was some mundane chore she needed to get over with. But to me, it felt like my entire life was hanging on this moment. The test itself was straightforward. Swab paperwork done. But that didn't stop my heart from pounding like a drum in my chest. As I signed my name on the final form, I glanced at Amanda. She was already halfway out the door, like she couldn't wait to leave. I followed her out into the parking lot. The weight of the silence between us crushing. We got in the car, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. I had 1,000 questions boiling in my mind, but none of them mattered until those results came in. And that's when Amanda finally spoke, breaking the suffocating silence. "This is ridiculous, Adam." She said, her voice cold like we were discussing the weather. "You're going to feel like a complete idiot when the results come back and you realize this baby is yours." I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. "If I feel like an idiot, at least I'll know the truth." She scoffed, shaking her head. Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. "You really don't get it, do you? You're destroying our marriage with your paranoia. You should be focusing on our future, on the baby. But no, you're too busy playing detective." Her words hit me, but not in the way she wanted. I felt the heat of anger rising in my chest, but I swallowed it down. The truth was, she didn't even try to defend herself anymore. It was all about turning it back on me, making me feel like the villain, like I was the one tearing us apart. But after everything, I'd seen all the lies, the sneaking around. How could she expect me to just sit back and pretend everything was fine? I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to speak without exploding. Instead, I drove home in silence. My thoughts, a tangled mess. I kept replaying. The night she came back from that party, the carefree smile, the smell of alcohol, the way her friends laughed about him. Jason, the guy who hovered in the background of everything, even though Amanda, pretended. He was nobody when we got home. Amanda didn't waste any time heading upstairs. "I'm going to lie down," she muttered, barely glancing at me as she disappeared into the bedroom. She always did this, retreated when things got too real. I couldn't decide if it was fear, guilt, or just plain indifference. At this point, I stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at the closed door, wondering what the hell I was doing. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand the truth, to force her to admit what she'd done. But another part of me, maybe the smarter part, knew that, no matter how much I pushed, she wouldn't crack. Amanda was too good at this game, so instead, I did something else. I went back to her laptop. I know I shouldn't have. But after everything, I couldn't let it go. I needed to know what else she was hiding, and if she wasn't going to tell me, I was going to find out myself. This time I wasn't looking for vague messages or hints. I wanted something concrete, something that would either confirm my worst fears or give me a reason to believe her. I opened her emails first. Nothing unusual there. Then I went back to her group chat, scrolling through older messages, piecing together the timeline. That's when I found it. One message buried deep in the chat from a few weeks ago. After another one of her nights out, Megan had texted her. "So what's going on with Jason? Are you going to tell him?" Tell him what? My heart started pounding in my chest. I scrolled through Amanda's reply. Not yet. He's too suspicious right now. I need to wait. What the hell was she waiting for? What wasn't she telling me, or worse, telling Jason? Before I could stop myself, I clicked through her recent photos. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe pictures from the party, maybe something innocent that I could overanalyze. But what I found made my blood run cold. There were a handful of pictures from that night. Amanda looking happy, carefree, but one of them stood out. It was a photo of her with Jason arms around each other, grinning at the camera like it was the best night of their lives. And in the background, some guy was holding Amanda's shoes while she had clearly just jumped into the pool, pregnant, laughing drunk with another guy's arm around her. I closed the laptop, feeling like I'd just been sucker punched. It wasn't just the photo or the messages. It was everything. The lies, the manipulation, the gaslighting. I couldn't believe it had come to this. Amanda wasn't just playing me. She was playing both of us. I stood up, pacing. The living room, trying to decide what to do. Confront her again. What would it even matter? She'd deny it. Twist the story, cry, scream, anything, to avoid admitting what I already knew. But what hit me hardest, what gwed at the pit of my stomach, was the thought that this baby, our baby, might not even be mine. And in that moment, I realized something. I was done. Waiting. Done playing her games. Done hoping for some miraculous redemption. The DNA test would tell me what I needed to know. And once I had those results, everything would change. The house felt eerily silent. After I closed Amanda's laptop, that picture of her and Jason had burned itself into my mind, their smiles mocking me, haunting me every time I blinked. I had all the evidence I needed, but it still didn't feel real. There's this moment when you know your life is about to shift in a way you can never come back from. And I was standing on that edge, staring into the abyss. I wasn't ready to confront her yet, not without the DNA test results in hand. But I wasn't going to sit there and let her keep pretending. My gut was screaming for me to take action, to rip the mask off and force her to face what she'd done. That evening, Amanda came downstairs, acting like nothing had happened. She asked if I wanted dinner in that cab. Almost robotic way she'd adopted lately, like she was just going through the motions of being a wife. I stared at her, trying to remember the woman I had fallen in love with, the one I thought I'd be starting a family with. But all I saw now was someone I didn't recognize, someone who had been lying to my face, for God knows how long we need to talk. I said, my voice low but steady. The words came out sharper than I intended. She froze her back to me as she stood at the counter pretending to pour herself a glass of water about what she asked. Not turning around, her voice had that defensive edge again. Like she knew exactly what I was about to say and was already preparing for battle about Jason, I replied. The name hanging in the air between us like a grenade, waiting to go off the glass in her hand, clinked against the counter as she put it down. But she still didn't face me. I already told you, Adam, she said slowly, carefully. There's nothing going on with him. He's just some guy. You're making this into something. It's not. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the wave of anger crashing over me. Really? Because it didn't look like nothing in that picture. I found you two looked pretty cozy, for just friends her shoulders. Stiffened. She finally turned around, her eyes locking onto mine. But there was no surprise there, just cold, calculated control. You went through my laptop again, she snapped her voice, rising. God, Adam, how many times do we have to go through this? I can't believe you don't trust me enough to stop. I interrupted, my voice louder. Now I was done playing this game. Just stop, Amanda. I've seen enough, the lies, the sneaking around, the partying while pregnant. None of it makes sense. You expect me to believe you've been completely innocent through all of this. After everything. Her face tightened, but she didn't back down. What do you want me to say, Adam? That I'm sorry for going out with my friends. That I should have told you about Jason. She threw her hands up, pacing the kitchen like she was the one who had been wronged. Fine, I should have told you. But I didn't cheat on you. Not that it matters, since you've already decided I'm the bad guy. I laughed, but it was bitter hollow. You did cheat on me, Amanda. Maybe not in the way you think. But you've been lying to me for months, hiding things, sneaking off. And now I'm supposed to sit here and believe that this baby is mine, without a shred of doubt. Her eyes flared, and for a second I thought I saw panic flash across her face. But she recovered quickly, her voice hardening. You really think I'd be that stupid that I'd let some random guy come between us while I'm pregnant? God, Adam, you're paranoid. This whole thing is in your head. My hands were shaking, and I felt the last thread of control slipping away. Then why are we waiting for a DNA test, Amanda? Why didn't you tell me about him from the start? If there was nothing going on, why hide it? Her silence told me everything. She looked down, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, lips pressed together like she was biting back whatever she really wanted to say. And in that moment, I knew she wasn't going to admit it. She'd never admit it. She was too far into her web of lies to ever come clean. I leaned against the counter, staring at the floor. The weight of it all crushed, ing down on me. I'm not doing this anymore, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. What's that supposed to mean? She snapped, her voice sharp. I looked up, meeting her cold, angry eyes. It means this marriage is over, Amanda, whether that baby's mine or not. I can't keep doing this. The lying, the manipulation, the constant gaslighting, I'm done. Her expression shifted in an instant. The anger melted away, replaced by something I hadn't seen in a long time: desperation. She took a step toward me, reaching out as if to close the distance between us. But I didn't move. Adam, wait, don't do this, she pleaded, her voice softer, now almost trembling. We're having a baby. You can't just walk away. I shook my head, the exhaustion finally sinking in. I can't stay, Amanda. Not like this. I'll be there for the baby if it's mine. But you, we're done. For the first time in months, Amanda didn't have a quick, snarky comeback. She stood there frozen, staring at me with wide, unblinking eyes, like she couldn't process what was happening. And for a brief second, I wondered if she'd finally draw the ACT, if she'd beg me to stay to fix things. But she didn't. Instead, she turned on her heel, storming upstairs without another word, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of our marriage. And that's when it hit me. No matter what the DNA test said, this relationship was already dead. The truth had been rotting between us for far too long, and now there was no going back. The sound of Amanda's footsteps pounding up the stairs echoed through the house, each step, a reminder of how far we'd fallen. I stayed in the kitchen for what felt like hours, leaning against the counter, staring blankly at the spot where we just argued. There was nothing left to say. She'd retreated to our bedroom like she always did, leaving me in the rubble of everything she destroyed. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. The anger, the heartbreak. They were still there, but now they were joined by a new feeling. Clarity. I was done waiting for her to change. Done hoping she'd confess, that she'd show even a shred of remorse, no matter what the DNA test revealed. I wasn't about to let her keep pulling me down with her. I made my decision. I walked upstairs, the air heavy, with the finality of it all. The door to the bedroom was shut, but I didn't care. I knocked once, then pushed it open without waiting for an answer. Amanda was sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to me, staring at the wall. She didn't even flinch when I entered. "We need to talk about what happens next," I said, my voice calm, almost cold. She didn't turn around. "What do you mean? What happens next?" Her voice was flat, drained of emotion. "I mean, we need to figure out what to do while we wait for the results," I replied, leaning against the door frame. "I'm moving out. I can't stay here anymore." That got her attention. She turned around, eyes wide with disbelief. The shock in her voice was real this time. She hadn't expected me to take it this far. "Adam, you can't just walk away. We're about to have a baby." I crossed my arms, trying to keep my voice steady. "You think I don't know? Know that. But this us, we're broken, Amanda. We've been broken for a long time, and I can't keep pretending that everything's fine. Not after everything that's happened." Her eyes narrowed, and just like that, the desperation faded, replaced by the same cold, defensive mask she'd been wearing for months. "So you're just going to bail? Leave me to deal with everything on my own? Real classy, Adam." I shook my head, refusing to let her bait me. "I'm not bailing. I'm giving us space. I'll be there for the baby if it's mine. But I can't live in this house with you anymore. Not with all the lies, the secrets, the way you've been manipulating me." Amanda stood up, crossing the room to stand inches from me, her eyes blazing with anger. "Manipulating you," she hissed. "You've been paranoid and controlling for months. Adam, you're the one who's been spying on me, invading my privacy, and now you're running away because you don't like what you found." I stayed silent, letting her words wash over me. It was like she couldn't help herself. Every time she felt cornered, she flipped the script, making me out to be the bad guy. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. "I'm not running," I said firmly. "I'm protecting myself, and honestly, Amanda, I think you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself why we're even at this point." She crossed her arms, glaring at me with all the venom she could muster. "Oh, don't you dare put this all on me. You're the one who's walking away. You're the one throwing away our family." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Our family, Amanda. You've been keeping things from me for months. You hid that party, You hid Jason, and now you expect me to just act like nothing's wrong. That's not family. That's betrayal. For a moment, her face softened. Just a flicker of something. Maybe regret. Maybe the tiniest crack in her armor. But just as quickly, she shut it down, turning away from me and walking to the window. Fine, she said quietly, her back to me. If that's what you want, then go leave. But don't come crying back to me when you realize you're wrong. I watched her stand there, staring out the window like none of this mattered to her. Like everything we built meant nothing. Maybe it did to her. I wasn't sure anymore. I'll get my things tomorrow. I said, my voice hard, and I'll be in touch once the test results come back. She didn't respond. She just stood there, motionless, as if she'd already decided this conversation was over, and in a way it was. We both knew it. I left the room, closing the door behind me, with a finality that echoed through the house. This. Was it the end of everything I thought we had? The end of a marriage that had been crumbling for far longer than ID realized. That night I slept on the couch, not bothering to go back upstairs. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to be in the same room as her. My mind raced, torn between anger, grief, and something I didn't expect relief. As painful as it was, this break felt like the first real step I'd taken in months. I was finally doing something for myself, finally drawing a line. The next morning, I packed a bag and left the house without saying goodbye. Amanda didn't come downstairs to stop me. I'm not sure if I expected her to. But when she didn't, it confirmed what I already knew. This was over. I found a place to stay at a friend's house, somewhere I could breathe without Amanda's presence looming over me. And now it's just a waiting game. Waiting for those DNA results, waiting to see if this baby is mine, waiting to see if I'll be forced to have her in my life forever, or if I can finally be free of the lies. But no matter what the results say, one thing's certain: I won't be coming back to her. That chapter of my life is closed. The waiting was unbearable. Every minute felt like an eternity, like I was stuck in some kind of cruel limbo, neither moving forward nor backward. I had left Amanda, packed my things, and set up at my friend Nick's place. But it didn't feel real. Yet it was like my life had been paused, waiting for the one thing that would either shatter me completely or somehow set me free. The DNA test. It was hanging over my head every second of every day. I tried to distract myself, diving into work, hitting the gym, hanging out with Nick and his girlfriend. But no matter what I did, my mind always circled back to it, to the question that kept gnawing at me like an itch I couldn't scratch. Was this baby mine? Nick was good about giving me space. But one night we sat down with a couple of beers, and he asked the question I'd been dreading. "So what happens if the baby's not yours?" he asked, not looking at me, just staring into his bottle like he already knew how loaded the question was. I took a long sip of my drink, trying to avoid answering right away. But there was no point in dodging it. I don't know, man. I admitted, my voice quieter than I intended. Part of me is hoping it's not that way. I can just walk away from her. But then it's a kid. You know I don't want to abandon my own kid. Nick nodded, not saying anything for a moment. Then he glanced at me, his brow furrowed. "And if it's yours?" I sighed, leaning back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "If it's fine. I'll take care of the baby. I won't stay with Amanda, though that's over. But I won't abandon the kid. I can't." The words felt heavy as I said them, like I was bracing myself for something I wasn't ready for. I didn't want to be tied to her forever. I didn't want her manipulation, her lies, to be a constant shadow in my life. But if that child was mine, I couldn't turn my back. The next few days blurred together, a routine of waiting, overthinking, and trying not to let my emotions swallow me whole. I hadn't heard from Amanda since I left, and I didn't reach out. There was no point. We both knew the test results would be the final word. Then, one morning, my phone buzzed. I was sitting in Nick's kitchen, staring blankly at my coffee, when the notification lit up the screen. Test results available. My stomach dropped. I stared at the message for a full minute before I could even bring myself to unlock the phone. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. My future, my connection to Amanda, the child she was carrying. It all boiled down to this, with shaking hands. I clicked the link to view the results. The screen loaded slowly. Or maybe it just felt that way because my heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. And then, there it was, the answer I had been waiting for. 0% probability of paternity. I blinked, staring at the words, trying to make sense of them. My mind raced, my emotion a tangled mess, relief, anger, shock, disbelief. The baby wasn't mine. The truth hit me like a tidal wave sweeping away everything in its path. The baby, the child I had been preparing myself to care for, to raise, to take responsibility for, wasn't mine. Jason's face flashed through my mind, and suddenly all the pieces clicked together. She had been lying from the start. All of her excuses, her denials, the fake tears it was all part of her twisted game. She knew the baby wasn't mine, and she kept it from me, trying to trap me in this nightmare. I stood up, my legs unsteady, the anger rising in my chest like wildfire. I wanted to scream, to break something, to storm over to Amanda's house and confront her with the truth, throw it in her face and demand answers. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to me for so long, knowing I was preparing to be a father? I grabbed my phone, my hand still shaking, as I dialed her number. She picked up after a few rings, her voice cold, distant, like she hadn't been expecting to hear from me. "What do you want, Adam?" I took a deep breath, my voice low, trembling with the anger I was trying to keep in check. "I got the results, Amanda." There was a pause on the other end, but I could almost hear her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew. And you lied. I snapped, unable to hold it in any longer. "The baby isn't mine, Amanda. You've known this whole time, haven't you?" Silence for a moment. I thought she'd hung up. Then finally she spoke, her voice cold and flat. I didn't know for sure. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "You've known, Amanda, you've known. And you let me believe it was mine. You let me go through hell thinking I was about to be a father, when all along it was someone else's kid. Jason kid." Another silence, but this one felt different, like she didn't care anymore. "So what you've got? Your answer now? What do you want me to say, Adam?" I made a mistake. It happened. Move on. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The complete lack of remorse. The way she brushed it off like it was nothing, like I was nothing. It was too much, too cold, too cruel a mistake. I repeated, my voice shaking. "You lied to me, Amanda. You lied about everything, and now you expect me to just move on." "Yeah," she said, her voice eyes cold. "I do what's done is done. It's not like you're sticking around anyway." My grip tightened on the phone, my pulse pounding in my ears. I had never felt so angry, so betrayed. And at that moment, I knew I was done. Not just with Amanda, but with this entire twisted mess. "You're right, Amanda. I said, my voice hard. I'm not sticking around. You can go build your life with Jason. I want nothing to do with either of you. We're done. Before she could respond, I hung up, throwing the phone down on the table, my hands still trembling with rage. It was over. Finally, truly over. The relief was there, just beneath the surface, but it was buried under a mountain of betrayal, anger, and sadness. I wasn't just walking away from a toxic marriage. I was walking away from the future I had thought was mine. But now I could finally start moving forward on my own terms. Amanda had burned everything to the ground, but I wasn't going to be stuck in the ashes. I was going to rebuild without her lies, without her manipulation, without her hanging up. The phone felt like cutting the last thread, tethering me to Amanda. It was a strange hollow, feeling like I had just thrown away everything I thought my life would be. But at the same time, I was lighter, free. But freedom didn't come without its scars. I sat there staring at the phone, my mind still spinning all the plans we had made. The baby's nursery I had started putting together. The future I thought was solid. All of it crumbled in an instant. Amanda's betrayal had left me in a wreck. But there was no going back. Not now. Not ever. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she had responded on the phone. No apology. No regret. She didn't even care that she'd been caught. She was just done just like that. The fact that she could treat something so monumental as a mistake, to be brushed off something, to just move on from it, left a bitter taste in my mouth. But the truth was, she had been like this for a long time. Cold, manipulative, always turning things around. So I was the one questioning myself. I had been living in a fog, thinking that maybe things would get better, that we could fix what was broken. But now, there was no fog, no illusion. The truth had hit me hard, and I saw everything clearly. For the first time in months. I wasn't going to be a father, not to that child, and I wasn't going to waste another second on Amanda. The next few days felt like slow steps toward rebuilding myself. I stayed at Nick's, not ready to return to the life I'd known, but I began putting pieces together. I canceled everything that tied me to Amanda: bank accounts, bills, everything we had shared. There was no point in holding on to anything anymore. I had to start fresh. One morning, Nick and I were sitting outside on his porch drinking coffee. It was a quiet moment, the kind of silence that wasn't heavy, but peaceful. The air was crisp, the kind of September morning that makes you feel like things are about to change, that a new season is coming. And for the first time, I felt like I was ready to embrace it. "How you feeling?" Nick asked, his voice careful but curious. He'd been watching me these past few days, giving me space but also keeping me grounded. I took a deep breath, staring out at the street, watching the leaves start to change color better. I admitted, "It's weird. You know, I thought I'd be more broken after all of this. But I'm not. I'm pissed, yeah. But it feels like I can breathe again." Nick nodded. That's the thing about being stuck in a toxic situation. You don't realize how much it's suffocating you until you get out. He was right. I had been suffocating for so long, trapped in Amanda's lies and manip population, clinging to a relationship that was dead long before I found out about Jason. But now I had space, clarity, and with that came something else I hadn't expected. Oh, for the first time in months, I felt like I could actually move forward. The future I had imagined with Amanda was gone. Sure, but there was still a future out there for me. One that didn't involve her lies, her manipulation, her cruelty. I could rebuild. A few days later, I went back to the house for the last time. Nick came with me to help pack the rest of my stuff. Walking into the place felt strange. This had been my home, the place I thought I'd raise a child. But now it was just a shell, empty and cold. The air felt heavy, with the memories of all the arguments, the lies, the betrayal. But there was no sadness left in me, just a quiet resolve. I packed up the last few things. Clothes, books, some personal items I hadn't taken with me before the nursery was still set up, untouched since I'd started putting it together. I stood in the doorway for a moment, staring at the crib, the walls we'd painted, the stuffed animals I had bought in preparation for a child that wasn't even mine. With a deep breath, I closed the door behind me. There was no need to linger. That chapter was over. As I loaded the last box into the car, Nick clapped me on the shoulder. "You ready for what's next?" he asked with a grin. Always the optimist, I smiled. The first genuine one I'd felt in a long time. "Yeah," I said, feeling the weight of everything. "Lift just a little more, I'm ready." Driving away from the house, I didn't look back. The old life I had built with Amanda was gone, but I wasn't grieving it anymore. Instead, I focused on the road ahead. There was something freeing in the unknown, something I hadn't felt in months. I didn't have all the answers yet, but for the first time, I didn't need them. In the weeks that followed, I started to rebuild myself in ways I hadn't expected. I reconnected with old friends, threw myself into work, and even started thinking about the things I wanted for my own future. Not the future Amanda had laid out for me, but one I could build for myself, one where I could be happy again. And I did learn something from all of this, something I didn't see coming at the beginning. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you the most. But when they show you who they really are, you have to believe them. You can't stay in a relationship built on lies, hoping it'll change, hoping things will get better. You have to walk away, even if it hurts, because staying, that's what destroys you. If I had any advice for anyone going through what I went through, it's this. Trust your gut. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't let someone else dictate your self-worth. And most of all, don't be afraid to let go when you realize the truth. There's life on the other side. Better life, Amanda and Jason. They can have each other. I'm done with that mess. As for me, I'm moving on. It's not easy, but it's necessary. And for the first time in a long time, I can see a future where I'm not stuck in someone else's lies, a future that's mine. And that's everything.